There we go. It took a bit longer than I would have liked. All right. Excuse me. Let's see. I gotta pop out the chat window, put it into the other monitor. Probably should have spent a bunch of time clearing my throat before hitting live, but you know, these things will occur. And then I got to find the right window again, and I have to hit this button here. There we go. One of these days, I should probably really hook up some sort of one of those Stream Deck things, you know, where you got a little cool buttons that can do neat things. I have one downstairs on the computer for when I'm streaming on Twitch, but I don't have one up here. So I should figure that out one of these days. Is everything working? I hope so. I keep clunking the mic stand with the... I've got very little room right here on my desk. Came back from Gen Con, and I've got a lot of lenses and things sitting out where they should not be, but it is what it is. All right. Let's see here. Graham Baxter, good afternoon from Temple Patrick, Northern Ireland. Airbrushing Death Guard today. Absolutely. That's very cool. Have a great show. I appreciate it. Bruno, good morning. From Mexico City. I love to be building something, but instead I'm doing lovely chores while listening to the show. Well, I mean, chores are still, you know, I've been told important as well. By the way, if you think it looks weird, it is a really gray and rainy, dark day here. So I have this extra light on, which normally I have on when I'm recording in here and doing live shows and things like that, just to give a little bit of extra pop and get rid of some shadows. But if I turn it off, it's real dark. Like I said, it's not very sunny in the sunroom today. So, anyway, let's see. What else have we got going on here? G.I. Joe RPG Stories. Good morning from Quebec City. How you doing? JJ, morning from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Crafting a shrine for Death Wizard's terrain. Cool. That sounds fun. Molly, how you doing? Good morning from Molly. Sleepy on a Sunday. Sure, I understand that. Morning from Quebec. Dragonfire, how you doing? Fungazi, how you doing? Good morning from lovely pre-Nova Open, Washington, D.C. I hope the weather stays this nice. Yeah, I mentioned it in the video this week, but like the weather at Gen Con was epic. Like it has not been like that there for a long time, and it was really awesome. And I do remember walking somewhere and thinking to myself, geez, I hope the weather was like this in Nova in another 3-4 weeks or whatever. The first time when Nova moved from the old location to the new hotel they're at now, which is the Washington Hilton, I guess, that year, the weather was gorgeous, just absolutely like dry, not too humid, not too hot, a little bit of a breeze, lovely sun, all that kind of stuff. It was very, very nice. Last year was not the same, and I think last year was normal for that time of year, whereas that time when it was lovely, not so normal. But yeah, we'll hope. We'll cross our fingers. VJ Morph, good time of day. How you doing? BF Bulldog, howdy. Good morning from Yukon. Taking inventory of all my models and trying to decide which of my gray horde to start painting on. Nice. I generally decide on what to paint based off of two things. Sometimes it's upcoming games, and sometimes it's just vibes, just like what I'm into right now. So that doesn't necessarily work for everybody, though. J Solo Arts, how you doing? Good morning from Hudson, Illinois. Rod Demore, good morning. Painting and listening. Nice. Angus, good. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all staying cool. It's humid here today, being rainy and dark and all that kind of stuff. And I wish I had a fan in this room, like a real quiet one. That'd be lovely. A nice little breeze on me. I was using an envelope before and fanning myself like a proper Southern lady, but you can't do that during the show. It's no good. Sitting in the basement in the dark with the AC on high because the residents of the upper floors get too hot fast. I see. Gotcha. Morning from Cleveland, assembling my third War and for Trench Crusade this morning. Nice. Math, how you doing? Good morning from NYC. Little Stinker, Love Infinities, excited for the show. Nice. Draco, good morning. Uncle Adam and chat. Space Gamer, Good morning from West Virginia. Terrier Halo. Well, hello there. How you doing? JJ Stock. Good morning from Hamilton, Ontario. Cleaning up sprue mold lines on the porch in between chatting with people for a local native plant garden tour. Well, that sounds fun. My wife loves native plants. We have a lot of native plants in the yard. She's very, very into native plants. Also plants that bugs like. Like our entire front yard is all stuff that like monarch butterflies really like dig. So there's constantly monarch butterflies outside just freaking out, which is cool. They're pretty, you know. Let's see here. Gabriel, how you doing? Gaming Geekery, finally recovered from my finger surgery. Well, good to hear. And finally back to hobbying. I'm eyeing the Infinity Werewolf types for a homebrew game myself. Nice. This Mechanic Games, how you doing? Good morning from Iowa. Joe Wood, excited for you to get into Infinity. I'm also new to it. Well, again, like I said, we'll see how it goes. I have done demos of Infinity versions 2 and 3 multiple times. I don't know if I ever did a demo of Infinity version 4 or N4 or whatever they call it. Now they're on version 5, N5. So I want to give it a try, mainly because of the starter box, because at the very least, I'm going to tell people about it. And maybe if it's not for me, at least it'll be for somebody, because like I said in the video on Friday, this is a $40 box for 6 models and some cardboard terrain and a mat and dice and rulers and the book and all that stuff. I mean, it's a little mini book. It's an essentials book, but still. And I'm going to open that here on the stream and kind of look at the stuff inside as well. I just think it seems like a really good price, and I think it's something that people who'd be interested in it could get into. I still may bounce off the rules. I'm kind of a dummy when it comes to rules sometimes, so I know that their rules are pretty dense, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, I guess push comes to shove, I could always just play it like it's a board game, in that it's just the stuff that's in that box. Play with the original. Because I had some people in the comments who were like, well, the thing is that the quick start rules are not the full rules. And I'm like, yeah, I got that. That's why they call them quick start rules. And they're like, well, and so there's a lot of detail that's kind of lost. And I'm like, yep, that's fine. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But I do want to take a look at the models for sure, because that was also a sticking point back in the day. I built an Infinity model before the channel was active, when I was still working with the folks over at Beasts of War. I got a model and made a video about building it, and man, it was like more than a dozen pieces for a normal little 28mm guy. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And from what I understand, they definitely are. They've cut that way back. They're like, oh, this is maybe 3 pieces or something like that. And so that's probably for the best. Let's see here. Mechanic Games, Joe Wood, except for you. Happy time of day from hot and sunny Michigan. See, we don't have hot. Well, we don't have hot. We don't have sunny either. Today's only supposed to get like 80, which will be nice because yesterday was 90. So it's supposed to cool down some, but it's also supposed to rain a bunch. So, which my wife says we need the rain. So, I'm going to take her word for it. I just don't like rain. So I don't know if I ever need the rain, but what are you going to do? Turnt Snacko, how you doing? Comp Native, morning. So to Infinity and Beyond means Infinity 5, maybe. Let's see here. Giger, good morning from Quebec City, drilling 150-ish rivet holes on a custom Necromunda board. That's a lot of rivet holes. Goodness gracious. Well, good luck with that. Jesse Daniel, morning from a wet Milwaukee. My part of the city got about 9 inches of rain. 9 inches. Oh, Lord. We didn't get nearly that much. Thank goodness. Yeah, that's a lot. Let's see here. Good morning, Adam from North Devon, UK. Thanks for the content. Absolutely. Good morning from Fox Lake. How you doing? Let's see here. Well, hello there, Fox Lake. Where there? Okay. Good morning from Uncle Adam and Minions, Chile, Santa Cruz. Any symptoms of con crud? No. I had some friends that came back with like colds and stuff. I don't think I know anybody personally that came back with COVID or anything like I did last year. But no, I've been fine. I mean, I've been at this point back as of tomorrow, I'll have been back for an entire week, and I don't seem to have any con crud or anything like that. I mean, I have a little bit of allergies in the morning, but I always have allergies in the morning, so um, that's about it. Let's see here. So con crud dodged this year, which is good. Morning from Arizona. Did you pre-order any of the new Conflict 47? No, I keep meaning to look at it, but I haven't done that yet. I should look at it more because I'm interested. I was kind of hoping they were going to be at Gen Con, but if they were, I didn't find them at all. But I don't think they were. Gen Con's really weird as far as the vendor hall is concerned. I think that it's very difficult to get into the vendor hall. And then once you're in, you have to go every year and you just have to kind of bend over backwards. And Gen Con really has like a, I mean, it sounds stupid to say that Gen Con has a real stranglehold on their own vendor hall, you know, because it's their vendor hall. I get it. But yeah, I don't know. I can understand when companies are like, it's kind of not worth it for us. I can see that in certain situations for sure, especially because of the internet now, you know? Like back in the day when I first started going in the early 90s, you went to Gen Con because otherwise, if you didn't, people would be like, oh, they must not be doing well. Oh, geez, I think maybe did they go out of business? Who knows? Because there was no internet. You couldn't just go online and go, oh, look at all this cool stuff that I have. So you had to go to, and it was also the place where you like were able to, you know, interface directly with the consumers. But nowadays it's not nearly as necessary. And I'll be honest too, there are still some places where you can get a deal from time to time, but there's still also a lot of a lot of companies just selling stuff at Gen Con at full retail or whatever. You know, there are some that are doing discounts or, you know, buy like those dice that I got, it was buy two, get one free. Sure, that's great. But still, you know, I can understand why some companies are just like, it's not worth it for us. No hobby work this today. Time to remove the carpet from the basement. Oh, so your basement got wet too. That's no fun. I've never. I had friends who were like, "So you gonna carpet the basement?" Like when we bought the house, and I was like, "I don't think so." I know so many people that are like, "Yeah, I got to tear the carpet out now because everything got wet," and I feel like keeping our basementy seems, at least for me, like less work. So that's why, yeah. But that's a bummer. I've had close friends that I've helped drag wet carpet, and my parents too. Now I come to think of it, back like 2008, I think there was a bit of a flood here in town to some degree, or at least a lot of wet basements. So yeah, that's a nice shirt. Oh, thanks. Um, it's light, and I was just like, yeah, it's just I was very damp, you know, getting out of the shower and everything, and it was just everything's real damp, and the AC hasn't kicked in because it's not hot enough yet and everything, and so I was just like, yeah, I'll put this on because it's a little bit lighter. So many t-shirts, like I like lighter t-shirts, but so many t-shirts that like, especially in gaming, are these like super thick, like nearly bulletproof, super thick ones, which are awesome in the winter, not great in the summer for me, I don't think. So I like the thinner ones usually. Most of the t-shirts that are on my merch store are generally slightly thinner ones. Let's see here. Greetings from Barnsley, Yorkshire, UK. Greetings from Columbus, Ohio. Taking a deep dive into Trench Crusade and Last War, thanks to Ash Barker. Ash Barker is definitely a pillar of indie games. Well, just of gaming, of gaming in general. Like if you're ever like, huh, this is an interesting game, I wonder if I can find a battle report for it online. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be on Ash's channel. So he's a heck of a guy and a heck of a resource in the industry. So if you haven't subscribed to Guerrilla Miniature Games, you should definitely give that a try. But Trench Crusade's fun. I'm hoping to play again soon with Sam. And Last War is also fun. It's they're very different games, I would say, for sure. Checking in from sweaty South Ontario, sitting in front of an electric fan. Nice. Yes, learning the unofficial XCOM minigame. Should be good. Gotcha. Sim25, morning from Montreal. Curious to hear if you've changed your mind about Infinity. I mean, I think we're going to see. You know what I mean? Like, that's the deal. It's a situation where I've always wanted to be interested more. And like I said in the past, I swear I've done at least 3 different demos, possibly 1 in version 2 and 2 in version 3, or is it the other way around? I don't know. I don't think I ever did a demo of version 4, but now we're on version 5. There's a part of me that's like sort of bummed we're on version 5. You know what I mean? Like, do we need to keep constantly making a new version? But that seems to be what happens when you're a big enough company. When you get to the point where you're a big enough company, then you know, like me and Vince are not a very big company. It's just me and Vince. And so we don't really have any plans to do second edition Death Wizards or second edition, Space Station Zero or stuff like that. But when you get to be a bigger company, it seems like that's the thing you do, because then it just, if you just go make if Games Workshop just was like, yep, we made first edition Warhammer 40K, and then just left it. I mean, I don't know. There'd be some people that'd be happy, certainly, and everything, but they would be probably out of business. And so that's kind of the downside of going big time, is that you then have to sort of do this sort of churn. I'm not saying like Corvus Belli is doing the same amount of churn as Games Workshop, Lord knows, but it's still, I don't know. It's just, it is a little daunting sometimes. So we'll take a look at it. Let's see here. The real Grimdark begins here. There you go. Good morning from Albuquerque, working on painting some skeletons for War Master and Hobgoblin. Nice. The Unsun Room. Yeah, it's not sunny at all today, is what it is. Let's see. Looking very dark there. Also wearing a shirt instead of a t-shirt. Very Uncle Adam of you. Like I said, it's thin. It's like a linen or something. I don't know. And it was on the pile, so I just grabbed it real quick. Let's see here. Good afternoon from Kent, England. How you doing, Double Dip? It is cooled off after quite a warm summer, so time to get some painting and terrain building done. Yeah, I missed my chance. Like, it was hot but not humid 2 days ago, maybe Friday. I don't remember. Thursday or Friday. I remember there was a day when I'm like, I should really go out and do some rattle can, because I've got like 3 small terrain pieces and like another larger terrain piece that I should really rattle can, and I didn't do it, and now it's going to be, crappy and wet for days. But later this week, like hopefully, I don't know, maybe Thursday and Friday, but hopefully it'll get back to being not rainy, and it will be not super humid, and then I can do some rattle can. I did last night or yesterday afternoon, technically, I did some, I finished up my Robot Legion Crusaders, who are the hand-to-hand combat guys with the weird kind of sword and the shield. I did the matte varnish on them, and then I went back and did some bright orange, like fluorescent orange airbrush to kind of pop the glow on their shield and stuff like that. I posted a picture of it on Blue Sky, but the fluorescent just doesn't come across right. It doesn't look good in that picture. So I'm going to take good pictures at some point once I get the entire army done. But at this point, I only have 1 section to the army left. I've got to paint 10 more of the regular like warriors with the guns, and then that army, 1,000 points, is done. So this, hopefully sometime this afternoon, I'm going to be able to take the time to prime that stuff down with the airbrush, and then do the capes, because I do some airbrush work on the capes, so I'll be ready to have them and start working on them Monday night on Twitch. Let's see here. I heard Infinity and wanted to hear your take. Well, like I said, I'm gonna open the box in a little bit and take a look at it. Afternoon from sunny Puckle in the UK, working on some 172nd 8th Army Infantry today. Nice. Our morning from Montreal, La Belle Province is represented nicely today, it seems. Nice. Good afternoon from an amazing day on the sunny Isle of Wight. Well, that sounds great. Good morning from a foggy and rainy and smoky Saskatchewan. Hope you've recovered from Gen Con. Mostly, yes. Like, I still felt, even yesterday, I was like, was just like in the afternoon, I was like, whew, I'm kind of tired. You know what I mean? I think that there's a lot of sleep debt to some degree that you kind of get into. Like, you go to bed late and then you don't sleep very well because it's a hotel room, and then and I'm in the room with 3 other guys, and then you get up early, and then you just go all day, and you're on your feet all day, and you come back and you do it again and sleep poorly for a short amount of time, and just yeah, I was absolutely just I believe knackered is the proper word when I got back on Monday last week. So let's see here. Good afternoon from a warm Netherlands. How you doing? Colin G, it has been beautiful here in the DC metro area for the past week. Hopefully we get lucky. Yeah, no, that would be nice. Jason Jacoby, morning from Colorado, finishing my quar. Nice. Got a bit excited today. Declan was watching Stranger Things the other day and expressed an interest in trying Dungeons and Dragons, so I downloaded a copy of the D&D Redbox. So many good memories. Nice. That's very cool. Surprised to see you revisiting Infinity, but I don't blame you. It's a really cool system if a bit involved. That is my concern, is the involved bit a little bit. Good afternoon from Cape Town, South Africa. Big excitement in the family. Finished getting the Skaven Tide models assembled. Played our first game together with my 13-year-old son. Nice. Very cool. Good morning from Michigan. Painting a Night Haunt Spearhead using Ghost Juice. Nice. When I was looking at those models from Malediction from Loot Studios, the Malediction game, I was looking at the different factions, and there was an undead faction that had a lot of ghosts in it, and I was like, I can paint those up pretty quickly, I bet. So that's the box that I brought home. Let's see here. Good morning, Uncle Adam, hailing from Farmington Hills, Michigan. Are you familiar with JD from the Sump Sea? Two Wisconsin YouTubers heavily interested in Necromunda. Is it a podcast? Wait, no, you said YouTubers. I'm sorry, didn't you? Yes, you said YouTubers. I don't know that I have. Well, so I talked to two guys who were running Necromunda at Gen Con. And I think they were from the Milwaukee area because one of them knew a friend of mine who's also from Milwaukee. So I don't know if those are the same guys or if those are just different guys. But I'm not familiar with the channel, but I'll have to take a look. I blame you for getting me into wargaming. Well, I apologize. I'm hyped to hear about you exploring Infinity. I absolutely love Corvus Belli. They seem like super nice folks. Yeah, I've always enjoyed chatting with Carlos specifically. He's a real nice guy. Simple math and deduction tells me there should be a new Snarlcast tomorrow. What is the main topic? The teaser trailer? We're talking about Gen Con. Yeah. We're talking about Gen Con and why there's not as much wargaming there. Kind of, I think, is what we mainly touch on. But yeah, you're right. It is tomorrow. New podcast episode tomorrow. Good morning from It's Hot Middle Tennessee. Corvus Belli games are so hard to get here. Really? That's strange. I mean, yeah, being a Spanish company, but I would think that they would be part of general distribution, like places so game stores get most of their games from distributors. It's kind of a middleman in some situation. And big distributors are companies like Alliance, although Alliance is in a little bit of a, with the whole diamond thing. But then there's also ACD, Southern Hobby, Heartland maybe is one of them. There's lots of different distributors that your normal game store usually has access to. Now, your game store might just be like, yeah, we're not carrying that stuff because it's not GW. There's a lot of game stores that do that. They just don't carry anything if it's not GW because they're like, well, GW is the only thing that ever sold ever, so we can't obviously sell other stuff, which is misguided, let's just say that, but also sometimes not completely untrue. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a store owner and you're just like, look, you know what I mean? I just want to order the Games Workshop stuff because I know it eventually gets off the shelves. I get it. That being said, if someone comes in and says, hey, do you have Infinity? And you look into one of your distributors and they do have Infinity, you should certainly special order it for them. And so that's the thing to take a look at it. See if your local store, if you can't find it there in your local area, see if they can special order it. And then if not, then your best bet is to start probably going online to different places and stuff like that. I mean, Corvus Belli themselves have a store, online store, so you could look at that too. Let's see here. Corvus. Nostalgia won out, and I picked up the Redux of Twilight 2000. Great memories. I never played that, but I had friends that did. Don't you hate it when you buy some storage boxes and then go back to the store for more and they don't do that style no more? Oh, yeah, yeah. No, that drives me nuts. The ones that there's one of the dollar stores had these great little boxes that had like integrated lids that were hinged and popped up and opened this way, and they were like smaller than a shoebox. I don't think you could fit shoes in them, but they were great for like, oh, I'm going to put this project in it so none of the parts get lost and then I can work on it again later. And they were, like I said, like $1.25 because dollar stores are not a dollar anymore. And then I went back to get more of them, and they were all gone, and they've never been back since. And I'm like, so that's a bummer. Let's see here. Oh, see, everything just moved. Pocket Dimension. How you doing, JP? Got Rockets. Nostalgia. There we go. Okay. Infinity is cool. Someday I'm going to build and paint all those Baukanin observance models and use them in Space Station Zero. I'm not familiar with those models, but that's cool. Main thing that's kept me away from Infinity is metal models. I don't have that in me any longer. That's also a concern, but from what I've been told, most of the new models, and we'll see what these models in the starter box are like, it's more of a, like at the end of the shoulder, like where the arm comes up, instead of just being flat, it's like kind of like a weird sort of trapezoid thing. And then in the torso, there's the opposite of that trapezoid. So it just, you put some glue in there and you just go, and it just fits in. And then you're not having to like pin it as much and stuff like that. So if that's the case, that's going to be great. But I just don't know if the models in the starter box do that, because some people in the comments on Friday's video were like, well, yeah, but those models are kind of older. So the ones in the starter box, but we'll see. I haven't looked at them yet, like I said. Main thing that's kept me, I read that. Congrats on getting one of those Archon Studios tank models at Gen Con. Oh yeah, no, I've seen them at other places, and I want to say I was going to pick one up at Adepticon because Archon had a booth there, and I was going to pick one up there, and then I just didn't for some reason. And then I saw them at the Elric Hobby booth at Gen Con, and I was like, well, I should definitely pick one up. Does seem like a great deal, but I'm in the same boat. Not sure I could follow the rules. Sure, I get it. I mean, honestly, at the bare minimum, if for $40 you're going to get 6 models and some terrain and some dice, you could play other games with this stuff if you wanted to, really. Careful with that box. Single-handedly resulted in a poor financial decision of not 1 but 3 factions down with more miniatures than necessary for either of them competitively. Seriously. Well, I mean, I don't play competitively, so at least I got that going for me, which is nice. Ahoy, Uncle Adam and minions from a hot and muggy Ontario. Today I will mostly be writing like a day-old salad. Wilting, sorry, not writing. Wilting like a day-old salad, in between braving the outdoors for intermittent chores. I get you. Hello from St. Paul. Infinity does have a great aesthetic. Some of the boards I've seen really scratch my itch. Yeah, I can see some of that too. Pocket Dimension, how you doing, JP? Got Rockets. It was good to see you at Gen Con. Looks like nice weather in southern Ontario. Nice. Good evening from wet Western Australia. JP Got Rockets came back from Gen Con with COVID. Well, see, there you go. And I do know somebody who came back with COVID. That's a bummer. I'm glad I didn't get it from you because I saw you there at the meetup at Potbelly on Saturday. I keep meaning to ask, how often do you get to have a game of something? You seem so busy between your different jobs in the hobby. I mean, not as frequently as I would like, for sure. Like, I really want to try to get in a game of Trench Crusade with me and Sam before Nova. But between, especially right now, between doing stuff for the next publication for me and Vince, which is Snarl, which will be coming out in November. And then, of course, making videos every week and all that kind of stuff. And then also doing stuff with Army Painter stuff. And then, of course, the stuff that's going on with my mom right now, trying to get her into assisted living and navigating all that and power of attorney and all that stuff. So, yeah, these days playing games has been difficult. And Twitch, in some situations, Twitch is the only time during the week when I get to paint lately. I try to do more. I do try to paint. I got to do some work yesterday, obviously on Saturday, so that was nice. But it was mainly just like, again, matte varnish and some other stuff and whatever. And then we had other stuff going on in the evening, so I couldn't do it then. I otherwise would have just stayed and worked on things last night. That would have been nice. But we had a birthday party thing to go to. So yeah, there's times when it's a little bit more difficult to get games in for sure. How much is a booth? Even small cons cost a ton. At Adepticon, or sorry, not Adepticon. I don't know what the cost of Adepticon booths are. I do know that Gen Con booths, like a normal 10 by 10 booth, I think just bare minimum, just the booth is probably $4 or $5 grand, I think. And then that, if you want electricity in your booth, oh, that's going to cost you. Oh, you want a chair in your booth? Oh, it's like that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's real expensive. And then of course you got to have, when people from your company come to run the booth and things like that, they need to not sleep on the street. So then you need to get a hotel. And then of course you probably got to feed them and then all these other things. So for smaller companies, and we kind of touch on this a little bit in the podcast episode that's going to be tomorrow, is that it's difficult. It's more difficult for smaller companies to come and run at Gen Con, especially when it's not really a wargaming convention, whereas the ones that come to Adepticon are paying less for the booth, and also they know that the majority of the people walking up and down the aisles are at least vaguely interested in the thing that they're trying to sell, that kind of stuff. So yeah. Monster Fight Club was 20% off at Gen Con, which was very tempting to go ham. You're right. Was that all the time, or was it just on the last day? I don't remember. I don't remember if I got 20% off on the stuff that I bought from them. Maybe I did. Hopefully I did. I live in a basement and have spent months without a personal space or even bed thanks to basement flooding while carpet replacement happens. Yeah. Finishing an Anakin Skywalker pod racer model kit for my brother's birthday, wondering if I should put a desert base on it. The base is just the symbol on the pod racer. It's very abstract. Yeah. Might be kind of cool. I mean, it would make sense somewhat, right? Good morning from Pittsburgh. Got to catch an every other, working on the Necrons as usual. Nice. Interested in seeing the contents of the Infinity Essentials box. I've never really looked into Infinity. Sure. Gym tiles are nice. Give some insulation and impact absorption, but are waterproof and can just toss them if need be. Gym tiles. Are those like those ones that fit together like puzzle pieces? Like the sort of squishy ones and stuff? Or is that something else? Ash Barker does in fact rock. I mean, I don't know if he rocks. I don't know if he knows how to rock. I don't know if he is. Maybe he played in a band. I'm not sure. Good morning from a 74-degree Atlanta. Hoping to keep this weather for Dragon Con. When is Dragon Con? It's got to be coming up soon, right? Ash Barker did a great review of the new second edition rulebook of This Is Not a Test. Nice. Good morning from the hot town of Ipa. I don't even know if I said that. Even close. Maybe I did. Tired of this heat. Yeah, no. That is, we're all going to be saying that a lot, I think. In fairness, they're in version 5 after what, 20 years? Something like that, maybe, yeah. Greetings from Castleberry. The Infinity Essentials box is an amazing value, but I can't work with metal minis. The new Warcrow campaign box looks very appealing, though. Gotcha. From what I've seen, it's a major improvement. Nice. Games Workshop, it ain't. They're not. No, they're not certainly nearly as big as Games Workshop. I don't mind the new versions because their rules are free. That is a big benefit. You're very right there. That's a good point. Updating things like that and making the rules changes and things like that can be a bummer if a person's just like, I just want to play this game and it's changed now. Like if you don't paint very quickly and it takes you a long time, but it's a skirmish game. So it's not like you're painting an entire army and then all of a sudden 3 years later they change your stuff. You're painting a smaller group and that's great. But the other big benefit of pretty much most every other company out there is that they have the rules offered for free. Like, sure, can you buy a book? Sure, absolutely. If you want to buy a book, fancy hardcover, full color shenanigans, you can do that. But as long as I know, Infinity has always had their rules for free. Maybe not in the very beginning. I don't know if they did. I didn't really know anything about it in this first version. I didn't really know anything about it until the second version. But for quite some time now, it's been free rules, which just, makes things a lot easier then. You're not like, ugh, I gotta buy another book. You know what I mean? Majestic 13 second edition, Majestic 14. Whoa. I trust Corvus Belly to do a good job with these things. Speaking a lot of them at Adepticon, they seem to really care about the quality of their games. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely love seeing you learning Infinity. Absolutely. I appreciate that. Why not just more books, minis, and supplements for the current edition? Money coming in is money coming in. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to it, frankly. Like I said, that's why I don't see Vince and I ever going, oh, a second edition Rain in Hell. I mean, we made Rain in Iron, which is a standalone sequel. So you could play the same game, but in a different way. But we didn't go, well, let's make a second edition of the first game. I don't know. It's just, I think it's just because we don't want to, because we just want to be making different things and making more things so that, like, if you kind of hitch your wagon to a single, horse, um, then you need to kind of figure out ways to keep that moving forward and monetizing it and all that kind of stuff. But with me and Vince, the way we look at it is we want to try to make as many different games as possible so that maybe you don't like game number 1, 2, and 3, but maybe it's number 4 that you're like, oh, that's awesome. And then, so if we were to just make Rain in Hell initially, and then that was our new ecosystem, and we're just going to be making games and add-ons and, addition, whatever, updates and this and that and all kinds of stuff and supplements. And if you don't like Rain in Hell, then you're not going to buy it, any of the stuff, right? Whereas if we make Rain in Hell and you're like, I don't like demons, or I don't like hand-to-hand combat or whatever, and then Space Station Zero comes out and you're like, oh, but that's that I like, that's the way we do it, at least. But we are not good capitalists, so we are bad capitalists. Olden Demon did a video back in the winter that convinced me that I ought to be playing Infinity. Interesting. I don't think I saw anything like that. Good thing about N5 is it's evergreen. Rules are updated every so often, especially seeing as the new ITS season is coming through competitively. You just check the PDF link and, it got ironed out. Oh, okay, cool. Good morning from a beautiful Junction City, Wisconsin. Glad I could catch the show today. 3D printing a new radio faceplate for my 1964 Corvair. Really neat. Really love when my mini hobby helps around the house. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Greetings from Chicago, the rat capital of North America. Working on Skaven for Mordheim. I've never seen a rat in Chicago. Maybe I'm going to the wrong spots. That being said, every time, well, let me take that back. The last 2 times that I was in DC, I saw rats both times. Like, they weren't in the rooms or anything. We were walking to go to a restaurant. We walked past an alley and there was a rat by a dumpster. I mean, obviously, what would you expect, That's where that's the dumpsters are for rats. That's what the way they're designed. But where I live, we don't get rats. We get raccoons, we get squirrels, we get chipmunks, but not so much rats. So it's kind of fun to see rats out in the wild running around doing rat things. Let's see here. I hope they don't start the edition churn every few years. It doesn't seem like they have, really, so it seems unlikely. GW versions and updates feel more like money grabs than improving the game. CW. I keep wanting to say CW. CB. Corvus Belly still seems like they love the game and respect our wallets. Yeah, I think so. I definitely do. I get that vibe from the people that I've talked to. Did you see the interview Matthew Varnish did with Monument Hobbies? I wish I could get a new job so easily. Matthew Varnish. I don't think I know who Matthew Varnish is. Is it like a guy who's naming himself Matt Varnish, or is it? I haven't seen that. The only Infinity things my FLGS wants to stock are the Joy Toy figures. I suppose I didn't know they made Infinity Joy Toy figures. I guess it makes sense, but I didn't know that. Huh. I suppose that after import tariff, shipping, exchange rates, taxes, and whatnot, a 40 USD box will be 80 in Canuck loonies. I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know. It's a good question. I think the bigger your game gets, the more you are pressured to make changes by the player base. More data and more feedback and all that. Maybe not the extent to GW, but still. I mean, I think it's something to do with maybe a little bit of that for sure, especially if your game is designed to be, or is even attempted to play competitively. As soon as a game becomes less about playing a game and more about playing a competitive game, I find that all of a sudden there's a lot of like you have to tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak and then also let's be perfectly frank, especially with GW. I'm not saying anything about this as far as Corvus Belli is concerned, but with Games Workshop, I very strongly believe that they will put out a new model and it will be amazing in the game. And then everybody buys it and then they go, "Oh, that's really unbalanced. Gosh, we should fix that." And then they do, and then the people who bought it are sad. Like that's happened countless times. And I feel like that's part of their business strategy, frankly. I mean, if it happened like once in a while, you'd be like, oh, well, that's just, they just didn't play test it right, or there was some sort of problem, or there was a miscommunication. But it happens over and over and over again. And I'm like, all right, well, this is part of your business plan. So that's also part of the issue in some situations. Let's see here. Just walking for hours on those concrete floors in convention venues takes a toll on your feet and hips. Oh yeah, for sure. I was trying to wear good shoes. Attila, how you doing? Melbourne. Spirit Halloween has a mutant 6-foot rat animatronic. Excited in Skaven. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I don't think we have a Spirit Halloween around here yet. They do. There is usually one that gets set up somewhere, but I don't think I've seen it yet. That being said, I'm pretty sure that like Target and like Walgreens and places like that already have their Halloween stuff up. And I'm like, it's just barely August. Good afternoon from Coventry, UK. Just sitting here painting some minis in Gaslands scenery. It says Garlands, but I bet it's Gaslands. I bought an Infinity set a while ago, but had underestimated how much I hate assembling metal minis. I hear that a lot. I do. I do wish... I don't know. It is one of those things where I do wish that they would move to something maybe more like plastic. I mean, I know with Warcrow, there's more like Ceocast and other types of materials and things like that. Either somebody at Corvus Belli is just like, no, I really love metal minis, and that's why we should continue to do it. Or they just understand that it is considerably cheaper than plastics. Plastics have a humongous upfront cost. And then you really have to crank out a lot of, you have to do a lot of reps before you can actually pay for that miniature or for the the mold for the miniature. So I guess they probably run numbers and go, well, okay, how many people don't play our game because of the metal miniatures in comparison to how much we would spend to make plastics? Yeah, I'm sure they've done the math. But it'd be interesting to see. Corvus Belli have done amazing work in the past with metal minis, truly amazing work. They've jumped into thermoplastic. My Warcrow starter set had several issues. Later minis like Volworks are better. Yeah, it really seemed like Ceocast was going to be the dream for smaller companies to be able to make basically plastics. I've heard complaints from a bunch of companies. They're like, yeah, but you can only get the plastic from Ceocast. I heard one guy I was talking to a company at Gen Con, and they do predominantly everything in Ceocast. They make a lot of just like, they don't have a game. They're not a game company. They're just a miniature company. They make just random, all kinds of fantasy miniatures and stuff. And it's all Ceocast. And the models look good. And I was just kind of chatting with the guy, and he basically kind of, I don't want to say let it slip, but he basically was like, well, it's great, except we haven't been able to get them on the phone, Ceocast, over in Spain for like a month. And I was like, oh, and I thought, are they struggling financially or something? Have they had to let a bunch of people go? He's like, no, it's Europe, so they're all on vacation. I'm like, oh, yeah, I suppose. But if that's the only place you can get the plastic from so that you can make more minis, but then they take most of the summer off on vacation, yeah, it becomes problematic. But nonetheless, it is an interesting concept, an interesting business model. And I know, like I said, Corvus Belli is moving into it. I do wonder if all of a sudden they decide to start making Infinity models in plastic, if it would make their core audience of Infinity enjoyers all of a sudden get angry. So maybe that's the thing that they're also concerned about too. I don't know. That's a good question. Worst case for the starter boxes, you bounce off the game, but have some nice minis in other games. Yeah, exactly. It's for $40. Again, you're still, Good time of day. Congrats on no con crud. Well, thank you, Ralph. Like I said, so far seems so good. So, were there any Trench Crusade events at Gen Con? I swear I heard somebody say there were. I never saw any. But it's amazing how big, because of how big the place is, things can sort of just like happen. Like there were War Machine events going on that I think I saw from a distance at one point, and then it was like Brigadoon and disappeared. Like I was like, oh, I'll check it tomorrow, and then I was like, no, I can't find it. And so yeah, it's a really big place. So I think that there was supposed to be some Trench Crusade in the event list, but I know they didn't have a booth or anything like that. Potentially next year, if they can get in, of course, because it's Gen Con being Gen Con. Started with old soft lead models. Today's metal models are worlds easier to work with. I would hope so. Let me see. Now I had everything scrolled again. There. JD in the Sump Sea. Yeah, those guys are fun for Necromunda content. Cool. I've yet to see Infinity in the wild around Portland. No kidding. JD from the Sump Sea or the Milwaukee area, if I remember right, they recently did a road trip video to Florida for a Necromunda gaming tournament. Wow, that's a long trip. So when you see a group of 4 miniatures from a range you've never seen before, do you immediately wonder if they would work for space weirdos? I know I do. 6 for Sky or for Skirm, 10 for Stargate. Oh yeah, like I've got a lot of models that I'm like, I don't know if I'll play that game, but I know what I could use those models for if I don't. Or sometimes it's just like I just want those models because I know what I'm going to use them for, and it's very frequently space weirdos. Hi from France. Happy to have your point of view feeling about Infinity. Well, cool. My store has Mantic, Warlord, and of course GW. I may ask about Infinity. Warcrow looks really cool too. Believe it or not, one-page rules is big at my game store. Well, that's cool. And they're going to have an actual box to sell soon, I think. That Broken Truth 2-player army box is going to be, I think, hitting, I don't know if it's Game Found or if it's the other one, Kickstarter. I don't remember. But they're going to be doing some sort of like crowdfund thing for it very soon. I've been seeing ads pop up now on like Facebook and stuff like that for it. It is 2 completed, like fully done 1,000 point armies. So instead of it being like GW would like, hey, we got you a starter box, it's called Leviathan, and you're like, cool, one army is 500 points, the other one is 800 points. That's not helpful. This is 2 1,000 point armies, completely fully. There you go, done. I mean, you have to paint them, but for the most part, I don't think you're gonna have to build them. I think they're gonna be assembled, which is cool. You have to glue them on bases most likely, but so it's gonna be like, and there's gonna be terrain in the box and dice in the box and like all pretty much everything you need from what I understand. They sent me a prototype early, and I have been working on the Robot Legions, which are the robot-y guys, and I've nearly finished that 1,000 point list. And then my plan is basically right afterwards to go into the Space Lizards. The Saurian Star Host is the proper name. And yeah, then I'm going to do that, and that's going to be really cool too. So I'm looking forward to that. But like I said, I believe that by the end of the year or so, they'll be able to have those boxes in stores. I think. I don't know if they're going to be going through standard distribution, if they've worked that out. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it'll be, like I said, crowdfunded first. Warsenal seems to have taken a lot of the role of distributing Corvus Belli stuff for the U.S. Yeah, that does seem to be the case. Yeah, and they also do obviously tons of the terrain, most of the terrain, I think, for them too. Infinity has awesomely detailed models, but I feel it can be tricky to paint for some. I could see that. I think if you're trying to paint it like they do, like in the... if you try to paint it like they do, like these models here are like, spectacular looking. They're just like all these fades and like all that kind of stuff. And if you're like, that's what I have to make it look like, I've got bad news for you. That's going to be hard to pull off unless you're like really good or want to spend an incredible amount of time. I'm not heading in that direction. That's not my plan, is to do that. So yeah, we can take a look at that stuff a little bit more in a sec. Positive lugs and sockets at attachment points. Pinning isn't strictly necessary with these. Yeah, that is a big benefit. I think there's resistance at some retailers to carrying Infinity because the range is so large and the game requires so few minis, big amount of shelf space for infrequent sales. I could see that, for sure. because, obviously stores are always, concerned about shelf space and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, when it's a skirmish game where you don't need that many models, but there's tons and tons and tons to choose from, yeah, I can see that being a problem for some retailers for sure. Some of the metal tags are still rough, but they're generally pretty okay. Gotcha. Oh, the tags, the bigger robot guys, TAGs or whatever. I don't know what that stands for. Tactical Armored Gargantuan. No, that's probably not right. Archon Studios is doing good work. I'm really excited to see the models they do for StarCraft. Yeah, that's going to be interesting, because initially I thought it was going to be like StarCraft the board game, but at Adepticon they're like, no, it's going to be a full-blown miniatures game. So now what I want to know, is it going to be on a grid or like a hex thing, or is it going to be just completely open like a real war game? That's always, I don't know what it is. I just dislike playing on a hex board or a grid board. I want to play on just like open board with some sort of measuring device. I just really like that. It may make me a bad person, but I'm okay with it. Dollar Tree had wooden boxes with nifty pseudo Necron sci-fi patterns on them. I bought a few to try out as buildings. Of course, they stopped making them. Well, that's weird. I wonder why they had those shapes on the boxes. That's weird. My last metal models were when Warhammer 3rd Edition launched. Oh, sure, yeah. Relic Blade medals are my most recent. Interesting. I think Relic Blade is coming back. There was a company at Gen Con that had a booth that is also, they're a company that is making, they're bringing back Relic Blade, but they also have this really interesting game that I cannot remember the name of for the life of me. And it is got these really cool mech models, though. I took pictures, I think. Oh, no, I took video. I didn't take pictures. But yeah, they're really neat. I'll have to figure out where they are, because I don't, yeah, it was not a company I'd heard of before, and they had just had a little 10x10 booth, but it was cool looking stuff. But they're also doing Relic Blade, which I've never been into, because they got a super anime kind of, like anime girl kind of like thing going on, which I've never been into. So building any of the remotes, those can still make you want to tear your hair out, man. Dollar Tree gets overstock stuff, so it can be different every week. Yeah. Archon Studios StarCraft minis should be amazing. I think it'll be interesting. I mean, I haven't played StarCraft in forever, but the downside to licenses, as they all are, is that then, there were only so many different units in the video games. So once you've built all those, usually the license holder isn't like, yeah, just go nuts and make whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, well, that's all we made, and that's all we sold you or rented to you or whatever. And so, it's the same issue that Star Wars X-Wing had. They got to the point where they were like scraping the bottom of the barrel for actual ships and stuff like that. And if they would have held out a bit longer, they would have been able to get a whole bunch of new ships in the TV shows and things like that. But it didn't really happen too much. Like, they got some of the stuff early on, but that was about it. But yeah, when you do license, sure, you maybe get an audience that you're kind of renting to take a look at your game and maybe be interested in it, but you're also putting a big limit on yourself as well, because, like Games Workshop can just continue to make, because it's their property, they can just continue to make weird crap and be like, oh yeah, sure, Chaos Dwarves, why not, or whatever. If they want to make another new faction for 40K, they could make stuff up out of completely whole cloth and just go like, here you go. So yeah. I heard that Infinity took out the nesting rules that they had. It used to be that one rule keyword could have 3 or 4 hiding within. Well, that sounds sort of scary. My Infinity Metal minis reminded me how much swearing I could do in a single day. Yeah, I mean, a day's long. You can do a lot of swearing in a single day. Definitely had to hold the parts. Tried the old baking soda trick, but still had a hard time. Lately, I've been enjoying this accelerator stuff that Army Painter, well, lots of companies make it, but I buy it from the Army Painter. The thing is, I don't like, it comes with like a little pump where you go and then spray it on there. I don't like to use that generally. What I do instead is I unscrew the pump part, and then there's the little straw that goes down into the bottle. That's when you pump, it sucks it up to the straw. What I usually do is I get a drop of the stuff on the end of that straw, and then I just sort of tap it to where I want it to go. And then it sort of, goes into the cracks and hardens everything up quickly. It's just basically like accelerator, like, super glue accelerator or stuff like that, because you obviously can't use plastic cement on these guys because they metal. So you got to use CA glue. Haven't rolled dice in anger in months. Oh, that's a bummer. Bit late, but I made it. Blasted Samafash, how are you doing? Boo. I've only done the Aleph, and the CA one, so I don't know if the other factions are better. Gotcha. Too bad they stopped with the Code 1 version. Those rules are not as heavy as the standard Infinity rules. I wonder if they just weren't popular then? I don't know. I heard of Code 1, but I didn't know anything much about it. There we go. I liked Code 1, but I understand why they axed it. Okay. I'm into everything that is at Gen Con, but it just reminds me of the atmosphere of Dragon Con. Used to go every year to Dragon Con, but it was mostly a party. See, Dragon Con I always thought was mostly about like cosplay and stuff. Like I guess I always heard that there was some gaming at Dragon Con, but I didn't think that was the focus. But I could be wrong. I need small boxes that fit nicely into big bins so I can organize projects by game series. Fishing lure boxes work okay for smaller unpainted minis, but no protrusions. I get you. I've only built and painted about a dozen Infinity models, and the older ones are more difficult to assemble and paint. The newer ones are more exaggerated details without getting too crazy. Well, that's good. Kelly, how you doing? Headed back to the golf range with my 9-year-old son, Beckett, and listening to the Every Other Sunday show. Two of my favorite things to do. Nice. I agree. I really liked Code 1 as well. The last few times I played, that's what we used. Nice. Glad to see you healthy today. Kudos for you taking care of your mom. Oh, sure. I mean, there's, you got to do these things. Yeah, like I said, I didn't come back with any kind of illness, thankfully, this year from Adepticon. Last year I came back with COVID. It was my first time ever having COVID, so that was no fun. But so far, yeah, everything's been good. To be fair, I did get a booster shot, I think at the beginning part of this year. I also got phase 1 of my shingles shot, and I think I need to get a second one. I keep forgetting to do that. I really should do it. It's just like I need to plan it for like when I'm not doing something, like, get the shot on a Thursday or a Friday, probably a Friday, and then because sometimes the shingles shot can make you feel ugh, and so you don't want to do that in the middle of the week usually, but it depends. Updating rules when they are free is the way to go. Less incentive to change things for the sake of changing. Sure. I mean, I got to be honest, the fact that they updated the rules for Star Wars Legion, even though they are free to download, still annoying, because now my 800-point list, which was a legal list, is no longer a legal list, and now it's 1,000 points, and so now I have to go and build and paint more Galactic Empire if I want to be able to play the game with my friend Kevin, and he has to go and build and paint, build and pay a guy to paint his Rebels so we could finally play. We were like just about to play when all of a sudden they changed the rules, and we were like, ugh. And sure, we could play with the old rules, but he owns a store, and so he's like, wants to be able to keep up on that stuff. He sells the stuff, so he doesn't want to be like, oh yeah, we don't play the new rules, we play the old rules. And then people would be like, then why am I getting into this game? I get. But either way, I think we all have a bit of GW PTSD, indeed. Howdy from sunny 72-degree Fahrenheit temps and middling humidity, Rattlecan priming day. Nice, Michael. That sounds very good. Iron Hell, giant robots versus giant demons. Ooh. I don't know how Infinity minis are, but old heavy gear metal minis were a challenge. Yeah, I remember some of those too. I did complete the rules for testing my miniature game last week, so going to test that next week to see if it might have something that could be fun. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I'm thinking about Majestic 13 with SCP monsters, maybe something for the zine. Potentially. Glad you don't have a single ecosystem. I love Space Station Zero. Was really tempted on Majestic 13, but the fantasy stuff isn't my thing. Yeah, and that's the thing. Is that like we've found that the fantasy and sci-fi stuff is generally more popular for the most part. So we've found that like mixing them together is not necessarily as popular as just like, this is a fantasy game, this is a sci-fi game. So yeah, we're learning as we go, and that's kind of the fun part, I think. We got some big rats here in DC. Yeah, like I said, it was me and Vince and Ninjon, and we were walking somewhere. We were going to a restaurant, or we were going to like Walgreens to get supplies, or I don't know what we were doing. We were walking along. We just and like I think John saw the rat first. We were like just walking. He just like glanced down this like alley, and he was just like, "Whoa!" And he, because he's from like Minnesota, which you don't get a lot of rats in Minnesota. Just like you don't really get a lot of rats in Wisconsin. You know, possums, raccoons, badgers. Technically, yeah. I've only seen a badger in the wild once, and it was standing by the side of a highway, scowling at cars as they were going by. It was just like. And but it was big. It was a big badger. Didn't want him. I was glad I was in a car, because North American badgers are very different than European badgers. They're way bigger and way meaner. Rats in Chicago are often at the bottom of the lake. Oh, that's gangsta talk, is what that is. Not gangsta, gangster technically. Those heavy gear models were challenging. See, amongst our friends, we always used to refer to it as for advanced modelers. If it was like janky and screwed up and hard to build, then it was for advanced modelers. To be perfectly frank, we were usually talking about Forge World. Like Forge World, you mean this is broken? No, it's for advanced modelers. This thing is warped. It's for advanced modelers. I'm glad that I never built a vehicle from Forge World. I have gotten Forge World parts like shoulder pads and things like that, or like the little door that goes in a Rhino and stuff like that. I did some of that stuff back in the day, but I had friends that were like building full blown like the Fire Raptor, like the nose of the Fire Raptor, that kind of flying like spaceship thing for the Space Marines or whatever. I think it's Space Marines. It had like 2 Gatling guns in the front, like the nose, the entire nose. A friend of mine built one once, and he sent me a picture, and the entire nose, he was trying to get it to glue together. He must have had 20 clamps on it from like every different possible angle, because he's like, every single piece is warped. I'm like, well, it's a good thing it was so expensive then. Cat-sized rats in South Philly. That doesn't sound good. Like what kind of cat? Like we have here at our house, we have cats that go from about 6 or 7 pounds to 17 pounds, and I would not hope that we would have a George or Rex sized rat. That would be horrifying. But yeah. Manny, how you doing? Manny from Miami. Currently working on a World War I project listening to some Op Ivy. Nice. Just curious if there are any interesting game mechanics for solo play worth checking out. As far as solo play is concerned, I mean, like me and Vince, basically all of our games except for the ones in the zines, they all have solo play built in, so you can do that. But then there's also the 5 parsecs from home, 5 leagues from the borderlands, 5. There's I can't remember what the one for apocalyptic stuff, post-apocalyptic stuff. 5 clicks from the zone, something like that. Those are also those are solo based and things like that. I like those. There's solo rules for space weirdos. I don't know why I was going to say it for space weirdos. It's just space weirdos. Anyway, yeah, so there's lots of stuff out there for solo type play if you want to, and then generally co-op is also involved in that as well. You could play co-op if you'd like to. Co-op is just two people playing solo, kind of. Speaking of which, I'm really excited for when it comes out later this year. BattleTech has a new thing that they're calling BattleTech Aces, and it is basically going to be solo and co-op play for Alpha Strike. So I'm like, ooh, that is relevant to my interests. So yeah, for sure. This is for the audience. Do you know of any good mini-agnostic XCOM tabletop games that are playable solo with sizable forces on both sides? Up until the sizable forces on both sides, I was going to say Majestic 13 by me and my good friend Vince. Majestic 13, you have 5 models. You have 5 models, and you usually play against one big alien. Sometimes multiple slightly smaller aliens, but usually it's versus one big alien. But that game is called Majestic 13. But if you're looking for a game like that, that's an army game, that I don't know anything about. Majestic 13 looks like this. There's an alien right there. That's his nose. And yeah, so that'd be something to take a look at. You can go to snarlingbadger.com, and it's also got solo and co-op play, so you can do all kinds of fun stuff. Feeding off meta chasers? Oh, absolutely. GW doesn't playtest, not anymore. I mean, I think they do. They maybe just don't do it the right way. I don't know. I just, it's very odd. GW is a business model to print money. I've played historical games that haven't had a rule change in a decade, and people are okay with that. In many situations, well, it depends. Like, so with Vince and I, we don't do updates to our games. Like, if someone comes forward and says, hey, this rule is screwed up, or hey, then we'll make an FAQ, we'll make it errata, whatever. That's a different thing. But we don't make second edition, third edition, fourth edition to our games, because we continue to make other games so that we have a larger and larger library. When you are a whatever the UK version of Fortune 500 company, then you have to constantly be making more and more and more and more money. Shareholders require it. Whatever, you got to pay your employees, and you have a lot of employees. So I understand why they do it. It's a weird bird. I just wish that, I don't know. I wish that there's a big part of me that wishes that GW wasn't as big as it is, because then they could do things better without having to think money first. There's a lot of companies out there in wargaming that don't think money first because they don't need to, because they're not that big. And that's, I think, where the more interesting stuff comes from. When a company starts to get really big in the gaming industry, they become less about gaming and more about profit. And that's just the way it seems to work. You can still say that there are people that work there that are all about the gaming, and that's true. Those people are doing it for the love. You definitely see it at Games Workshop, because a lot of people that work at Games Workshop who are doing it for the love because they're game designers or painters or sculptors or whatever like that, they're not getting paid that much. They could get paid better in other industries, but they're doing it because it's a passion for them and everything like that. It's not right that they're not getting paid that much. GW should be paying them more. And to some degree, they have started to do that, from what I understand. It's a lot better now at Games Workshop, from people I've talked to, than it was 10 years ago. But look at a lot of the people who left. Look at Duncan Rhodes. Look at Peachy. Look at Rob, the Honest Wargamer. Look at Louise, Rogue Hobbies. Like, these people left and went and did their own thing because GW wasn't paying them enough, and they weren't like, and they're like, well, I can go do this elsewhere and be happier with what I'm doing. Honestly, look at the Army Painter, look at Warlord Games, look at Mantic. All three of these companies are started by people who left Games Workshop and decided to go do their own thing. It's funny because Games Workshop, being Games Workshop, has made the industry bigger. I don't know if it's for the best, but probably in the long term it is, because they have caused people to leave and then go start companies that make things that I generally have a tendency to like a little bit more. So I don't know. It's a weird timeline we live in. We all know that, but yeah, it's some interesting stuff. I loved how the old heavy gear models came with a postage stamp sized decal sheet of tiny markings. If you manage to use them, they set the miniatures off beautifully. Yeah, little tiny ones can do, that's the thing. Had my first Spirit Halloween sighting yesterday in the big city. Nice. I was new to Warhammer a year ago. What you described happened to me countless times. Thanks for saving me from GW madness. Yeah. Hi from Wisconsin. No flooding near me, thank goodness. Yeah, like I said, we got some rain, but not as much as they did down in Milwaukee, thank goodness. So I hope everything comes out okay down there. Afternoon from all Scotland. Afternoon all from Scotland. There we go. Researching how to paint some plastic 28mm Ratman / Skaven. Nice. Once you get used to metal, it's a lot better to work with. I could see that. I've had some really awful experiences with COcast. I've had okay experiences with COcast, but I've got friends that absolutely hate it, and other friends who are like, I like it except for the mold lines. Those are the things that I can think of. Really like metal. I love that heft. See, I want my models to be lighter so that if they get knocked over or fall, then they are less likely to chip. Metal models, and I don't have a lot of metal models, but the ones that I do, like if you drop them, whereas I can drop a plastic model and usually not worry about it as much. Now, 3D printed models, depending on what's in them, different story, because they can be kind of brittle. So even though they're very light, you can still drop it on the ground and be like, whoop, arm came off, or whatever. And very frequently it's not at the glue joint either because it's a 3D model, so that's not the way it works. But yeah, as far as the heft though, that I know some people dig that. It's never not a thing I need. Corvus Belli uses metal because they can control their supply chain. They don't need China for it. I mean, the thing is you don't need China for plastic models either. Games Workshop does their own models in-house, which obviously not everybody can afford to do. But there are also companies like Wargames Atlantic. All that stuff is done in Georgia, not the country, but the state, like right here in the the good old USA. But yeah, so it can be done in other places. Archon Studios, like all their plastics and stuff, like I'm 90% sure I think are made in Poland. I don't know if Archon Studio works out of China or not. It's a Polish company, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure that they're making all this stuff and doing it there. Zeogenesis, like that guy just decided to start making it. I mean, like Zeogenesis, they are not only making their own, they're making their own molds in house and then making their own they're doing metal molds and plastic injection molding, and they're doing it all in house themselves. They're not even sending it to a different company or whatever, which is like a thing that generally only GW can do. But these guys are like, nah, we'll do it too. It's cool. So the problem with CEOcast, like I said before, is that you kind of have to get the plastic from the company, and if they're out or on vacation or whatever, it becomes a thing. When Warcrow came out, I went to the buddies to help him put them together. We had so much to get them together. Like I said, I've done a couple of different CEOcast models and had pretty good luck with them, but I've not done tons of them, I guess. Maybe half a dozen CEOcast models. So you said So you said metal minis are cheaper. They're cheaper to produce because you make a rubber mold as opposed to making a metal mold. Now you can't get as many impressions out of the rubber mold, but then you just make another rubber mold because they're relatively inexpensive. A metal mold is incredibly expensive, but you generally don't have to go back and tweak it. You know what I mean? Like maybe you do. Maybe something breaks, something happened horrible or whatever, but it's less likely to happen. Metal molds take a lot longer to wear out, let's just say that, but they also take a lot more time and a lot more money to make. Whereas rubber molds literally are considerably cheaper. But that's how you make, then you pour metal into it, stuff like that, whatever. You don't pour it. It's called something called spin casting. It uses centrifugal force, one of those. But the problem is that generally the metal is a little bit more expensive than metal itself. The material is more expensive than plastic in many situations. But on the other hand, it's also much more recyclable. So like when you make a sprue, you get all these extra bits and stuff like that that are outside the sprue that they have to clip off before they put it in a box and ship it to the store. And you have that same type of thing with the spin casting metal. But instead of those plastic bits being chewed up and maybe being turned back into plastic, all the extra bits that are metal that come out of that process automatically just go back into the pot and get melted down again. So it's much more recyclable stuff. But, everyone's got their thing. I got to be honest, I generally prefer plastic miniatures. I really do. But a little bit surprised that Uncle's giving Infinity a shot. I like the concepts. It's just, again, like I said, the rules are the thing that I'm going to potentially bounce off of, if anything. For smaller skirmish games, metal models are fine, but not for big army games. Big army games could be problematic too, for sure. Let's see. Really surprised. Pretty much all the old D&D, AD&D, and AD&D second edition books are all in Internet Archive. Would have thought WotC would have stomped on all that. I mean, it makes sense kind of that they don't, in my opinion, because they would want you to. Because they're like, well, look, if we can get you into second edition D&D, I guess then maybe eventually you'll buy whatever the new edition is. I don't know if it's fifth anymore or if it's sixth. I'm not sure exactly what they call the new edition. Have you ever considered releasing all your games as a hardcover set? What were the challenges? So, one hardcover book with all the games, or do you mean hardcover versions of each of them? Um, it's just, I think, well, okay, so two things. Number one, it's a cost issue. So the books would be considerably more expensive in hardcover than they are in softcover, like a lot. Um, it's just part of working with a War Game Vault. It's just, what else? Oh, and then of course the question of like the actual cover itself, we would have to redo probably every cover because like the soft cover, the artwork, the template they give you for the cover is you have to go to this like there's like a section of the website there where you say this is the size of the book that I want, this is whether I want soft cover or hardcover, and then this is how many pages it is, because the template that they give you to lay everything out, obviously there's the size of the book, right? It's 8.5 by 11, but then there's also the thickness of the book. So a 64-page book is far thinner in the spine than, say, a 144-page book like this one, right? So that template, you can't just go, oh, I'll just download a template for it and it's fine. Like you have to tell them this is what I want, and then 10 minutes later, like some system at the place sends you a link to a specific template for your book, and then you do that. So we would have to redo the covers on everything if we were going to do the book separately. If we were going to make one big one, we could and just make a completely new cover. I just don't know if there's a benefit or if people would be interested in doing that. I mean, I'm not I got to be honest, I'm not super into hardcovers. If anything, if they ever bring back the ability to do spiral bound, and if it doesn't take a lot of work on our part, I would love to offer some of our books in spiral bound too, because then you could lay them flat a lot easier, right? But yeah, I don't know if it's a thing we would do down the road. We talked with a company actually outside of print on demand about doing like a fancy schmancy version of one of our games, probably like Rain in Hell, doing like the ultimate Rain in Hell version, with a hardcover and blah blah blah, and in color and this and that and everything. And we were just like, I don't know. I got to be honest. I don't generally want to get into the practice of making these super fancy, expensive editions. You know what I mean? Which is weird because sometimes I do, well, like I like to buy role playing games sometimes just because I think they're really cool to read and all that kind of stuff and look at the artwork. But it's not, oh, look at the print quality. Oh, look how thick these pages are. Oh, look at the special spot gloss or varnish or whatever on the cover. Like that's not the stuff that impresses me. It's the actual artwork, writing, graphic design. That's what impresses me. I could also download that stuff as a PDF and be relatively as happy. And also it would take less space on my shelves, obviously, then too. But I know there's a lot of people out there who are really into the like, oh, it's got this great heft to it and it's got this great feel and the pages are thick and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yeah, but it's an $80 book. I mean, like, I don't know. That's my wife is a big book fan, not necessarily gaming books, but she's big into books, like physical books, whereas I'm listening to audiobooks more often than not. So it kind of depends, I guess, on what you're into. But I don't know. I don't know if we would go down that road or not. I drop minis way too often to go to metal. Yeah. You mean the idea of summer holiday is alien in the US? Yeah, that's basically the case, yes. I mean, it's a bummer, don't get me wrong. But it is definitely, because we forget about it as Americans. We're like, what do you mean you're going to be gone for a month? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. It's just kind of the way it works. How far behind am I? I'm super far. Where's there we go. Corvus Belly has been pushed for plastic for years. Even in N2, people wanted plastic. Oh, I can totally understand that. Sure. Did everyone get to see what they wanted to see at Gen Con if you went? It's always hard to tell if you could see everything you wanted to see because you get these big booths that are amongst all the rest of the booths. So you're walking up and down aisles and then you get clunked into the Asmodee booth and you're like, crap. And you walk around it. and then maybe you miss something on the other side when you start doing your grid walk again. It's really hard. I wish they would take all those guys with a giant boost and throw them in a different building. I don't care where. Just like, I want to just walk up and down grids and see everything that's in a regular size booth, and all you big monsters in your giant, stupid booth with like its own atmosphere and stuff like that. Go, I don't know, put them in, I don't know, put them in the football stadium. That'd be great. Cost of injection molds is just insane. Oh yeah, I mean they're because they're super super incredibly durable and you can pull tens if not hundreds of thousands of impressions with them. But yeah, I get that. Coming from 40K, I prefer Corvus Belli's metal to GW's legacy metal minis. Oh yeah, it's night and day like plastic to fine cast. Yeah. I don't really mind metal, but I wish they made swords or some bits in plastic. The thing about a metal sword is you can always bend it back if it gets a little wiggly. Whereas if it's a plastic sword, sometimes not so much. I actually preferred old lead models for ease of cleanup and conversion. Plus the heft of the hand felt so good compared to plastics. Mix of materials would probably make most people happy. Potentially. For Infinity in Portland, Oregon, you need to visit Mind Taker Games. That's a fun name. I like the name of that store. In Vancouver, Washington, they play Infinity. Wait, what? So if you're in Portland, Oregon, you have to visit Vancouver, Washington? Are they close to each other? I don't know. I'm not good with the geography up there. They play Infinity there every Saturday, I believe. Check their schedule. Lots of gameplay there. Cool. Also, simplicity of Corvus Belli minis to build compared to 50 step sprue. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I built an Infinity model 13 years ago that I was like, I'm going to die. This is so many parts. My God. And now that's what every GW model is. Like, that one guy that I painted he's like a mercenary. I think he's the skinny version of Fat Yuan, which I've been told by people before, but he was a special edition miniature that if you bought an Infinity battle foam bag, then if you were one of the first 750 people or whatever to buy this bag, then you got this special miniature. And then I built it. There may still be a video of me doing it out there because it was back when I was doing work for Beasts of War. Anyway, so I built this mercenary guy, and he was seriously like 12 or 13 pieces for a dude like this big. And then a couple years ago, I was going to build these suppressors or whatever they're called from Games Workshop, the jump pack guys with the long skinny guns, and just their backpacks were 11 pieces each. I was like, So anyway, I hear that Corvus Belli went COCast because they can still do production in-house. That is the benefit to COCast, of course, yeah. Plastic and Unicool are great materials, but you have to send everything to a factory somewhere, just China for the latter. Again, you don't have to go to China. There's ways to get around that, definitely. And like I said, and you don't even have to, you don't even have to do it. You can still do it in-house. Xeogenesis is doing it. You just have to be prepared to spend the money for it. Corvus Belli doesn't want to become reliant on people outside production for their main line. They do it for their board games and similar projects, but occasional single pieces. Sure, yeah. I don't need instructions to glue a model's arms on. I don't need the arms to be in 15 parts. Also true. Playing AD&D in the 90s, my PCs are all Grenadier or Ralpartha. Gotcha. Let's see. I had to pin the arms for my pano because they kept falling off. That's sometimes problems with metal, for sure. Also hard to force 40K players to try something else. Yeah, well, you don't have to force them is the trick. Corvus Belli has an almost core book's worth of information for free on their website. Oh yeah, that's the thing. They put, I think, most of the rules, if not all the rules, for free on their website. Relic Blade is Sean Sutter's. Oh, I'm thinking of Relic Knights. That's the other one. That's the one. I am thinking of Relic Knights. You're right. Yeah. Relic Blade is, no, that. You're right. That's Sean. I get Relic Blade and Relic Knights confused because of the word relic. Because I'm, I looked at Ignition Core. That's the game I was looking at. I looked at some of the models that they had there, and I thought some of them were really cool. The thing is that the game is kind of just looks like the game is mainly just played on a grid board, and then I'm like, but the models I thought were pretty dope. Saw an interview where Archon Studios confirmed the StarCraft game will be free movement, 30 to 50 models per side. That's a lot of models, jeez. And can be played on a 33 by 33 mat or a 33 by 66 mat. Those are strange sizes. Have you ever played OPR? Oh, yeah. I have played mostly at this point Grimdark Future Firefight. That is my main jam, but I am getting into regular old Grimdark Future. Like I said, I am building, well, they're built, and now I'm in the process of painting the last 10 models to a 1,000-point list of Robot Legions, and then after that, I'm going to start working on a 1,000-point list of the Space Lizards. That's not their technical name. It's Saurian's Star Host, I think. Ignition Core Games is bringing back Relic Knight. That's what I was talking about. And it has some other games, including Magical Girl Assault, which is super anime and not for you. Ignition Core also have a very Shining Force line of models. Shining Force being a Sega tactical game similar in gameplay somewhat to Fire Emblem. Interesting. Relic Blades is Sean's amazing. Yeah, like I said, I always get that screwed up. If I had a big license and I was allowing a company to make minis, I'd be wanting them to use them to as design as well. Let them make units, but I get the rights. I mean, if you can get them to be convinced to do that, sure, that would be cool. I was going to open this box up. Cut a little tape on here. There we go. Bought Space Weirdos after watching the Why I Like It video where you featured it. Finally got to play in a couple weeks. Loved listening to Building. Thanks for the great referral. Absolutely. Heading out for the day? Nice talking to you. Absolutely. With Warlord losing 2000 AD, I'd be both excited and frightened if GW picked it up. Old school. That would be something if they did. I doubt if they ever would, but they might, I guess. I think that they're really focused mostly on their IP, and then, of course, what's the other one? Lord of the Rings or whatever, but we will see. So it's a box in a box. Sturdy. All right, so you start out and you get the quick start rules. And it's a thin little booklet. It's got stuff going on, ad for Warcrow in the back. And then there's a plastic thing that's got a bunch of little baggies and stuff. You got yourself 6 dice. You got yourself some bases. You got yourself some cards. There's cardstock stuff on the bottom that is terrain. Now let's take a look at some of these models, shall we? I wish I had a second camera in this situation like I do on Twitch. All right. This guy, this little skinny dude here probably looks like he's going to need to be pinned because his arms just sort of attached to the side of his shoulder there. So that's a little bit of a bummer. And then this guy, kind of the same thing going on. Oh, sorry, this lady. Again, looks like I'm going to maybe either have to do some pinning or some green stuff on that. This person is larger, and one arm is attached with a sword. The other one does actually have the little lug that goes into the shape, so that's going to be nice. So this one will be a little bit easier to put together. Kind of the same. Yeah, this one's also got kind of the lug attached to it. So it's not just like a flat surface glued to a flat surface, whereas like this is the end of the arm coming up, and then this is the side of the torso. Instead, you've got this thing that kind of goes into a divot that's the exact same size and shape. So it goes in just one way, and then they give themselves support that way, as opposed to, you know, where you're just like, again, just gluing an arm to the flat part of the torso where the shoulder should be. I don't know what the heck these are. Tiny little backpack parts. Tiny little antennas or something. That's okay. This one looks a little bit more like, again, everything goes in one way and you may not have to pin it too much, so that's cool. Are there more models? Am I missing something? So that's 2 models, 2 models, and 2 models. Yeah, I guess that's all of them, because I think it's only just supposed to be 6 models, right? Where did I put the box? Oh, right, over here. I mean the outer box. Yeah, so it's 3-on-3. 3 models and 3 models to 6 models. So a couple of them are slightly older seeming, and they have more of just that flat part that goes onto a flat part, but the rest of them seem okay that way. And then take Mr. Plastic Tray out and set you over here. And then there's these cards, which are really only, from what I understand, something that you get in the starter box. Like, this is not something that's normal, but it's to help kind of help you learn things. And then there's this big packet of like card stock and cardboard that has like tokens and terrain and stuff like that. And then this thing here is the like card stock mat, which you play on. And then that's pretty much everything. It's all fit nicely in this box. And that's pretty much it. And again, like I said, $40 USD. Now, can I get it back in there? Probably not. So I'm going to set this over here for now. But like I said, there's also quick start rules, which is how many pages? About 18 pages roughly. And there's, well, it's 18 pages, but there's also like fluff. You know, you got some like, oh, this is this faction and this is that faction. So yeah, so this set is JSA versus Pan-Oceania, but they tell you about all the factions, because there's Pano, there's Yujing, there's Combined and O12 and Ariadna and Nomad 5 or whatever. So they're giving you a bunch of fluff as well, so you can get the idea. Hak Islam, Aleph, JSA, and then you start getting on page 8 into the actual rules and stuff. So that's a whole thing. The kind of weird line of fire cylinder kind of thing going on, that's going to be something. And then on page 11, there's an ad. So again, we're talking about pretty truncated rules here, obviously, but that's fine. Again, it's a starter. It's a quick start rules. And then there's another ad. You can go to your talking about how to learn how to play. And then there's another one for their new Rem Racers game, another ad. So when I say 18 pages, it's really more like 10 because of all of the extra stuff, the fluff and some ads, which is fine. And if it's something that you can do and play multiple times, and then eventually when you sit down to actually read the actual real rules and go, oh, okay, well that's... So yeah, I'm going to mess with that. I think I will probably start with obviously building the models. And there's, again, 6 models will paint up pretty quickly, because I'm not going to try to do them nearly as fancy as they do. Obviously, I'm not trying to do box art here. I don't think I could do box art, but yeah. Going to run an Inquisitor with a host of servo-tized gun apes. Nice. My son and I are looking into fan-maintained older versions of 40K. Looks promising. Oh yeah, there's plenty of stuff out there for that, for sure. Running behind. Hope you get things sorted with your mom. Well, I appreciate that. Me too. I do. Hello from New York. How you doing, Jim Crimmins? Working on multiple spearheads at the moment. Really enjoying that format. That's cool. I've been hearing great things. Like, people have been like, I've played Spearhead. I have 2 painted Spearheads. I have the Skaven and the Sons of Bahamut or whatever, the Giants. I haven't played it in a minute, but I enjoyed it pretty well as well. I still partially feel like the board is too small. A little bit. Just that's personal preference. But I've been seeing more and more people really liking it and really enjoying the format, which is great. You know, that's the idea. Do you have any info review on those RuneQuest minis you picked up at Gen Con? Would love a war game on that RPG. I don't think they're making a war game. I think they're just making the miniatures for use in the RPG. I could be wrong, but I don't think they are. I put GW on break last December, and I've been playing Infinity and Moonstone since, thinking one for the thinking days and the other for chill fun. Yeah, no, I can see that. American badgers do not sit down to tea with you like European badgers. It's true. It's very true. Hope you're having a good morning. Just a question that I hope doesn't get banned. A short-sleeved shirt, kind of not your style. Did you lose a bet? No, it's hot. It's been kind of hot, and this was on top of the pile, and I put it on. It's just a shirt. Sometimes I wear these, but I generally, for the videos, I'm generally wearing a t-shirt. I wear t-shirts most of the time, but sometimes you wear a shirt that's not a t-shirt, and so there you go. Rouses, ROUSs. I don't think they actually exist. It's true. Solo play for Alpha Strike. Now that sounds like my jam. Yeah, solo and co-op play. It's called Battletech Aces, and in theory, it's supposed to be coming out towards the end part of the year. They had a mock-up of the box, and they had a guy who could tell you things. That was mainly what they had going on there at Gen Con. Like, I never got into the actual Catalyst Games booth because they have a bouncer. It's the only booth in the entire place where they're just like, no, we can only let so many people in at once, sir. No, you're gonna have to wait. And I'm like, I'm not gonna stand in line to go into your booth. Thank you. So I just don't. But they've done that the last several years. I've like walked to go into their booth, and I'm like, and the guy's like, sorry, sir, there's a line, and there's like 10 people in line, and I'm like, for what? I don't want any big, like, I'm not looking, and they're just like, no, to go into the booth. Like, I think maybe on Sunday they finally are like, well, there's not that many people or whatever, but there's still plenty of people. I don't know. Every time I walked by, there was a bouncer, and I'm just like, whatever. So yeah, I think the trick to having fun gaming is to try to develop a community at your game store versus your house. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for fun, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, some people just really want to just play with their friends, so then they're going to, hang out and just have their group at their house. I think if you want to try to grow things to some degree, you definitely need to do it at your local game store. I think playing at both places is probably overall the best, maybe, but yeah. Hope you're having a good morning. Was wondering if you've played Morkborg yet, what you think of it. I haven't, and I probably won't because I'm not really a role-playing game player. I'm just a role-playing game reader, and I love reading Morkborg. Morkborg's spectacular as far as like reading, like kind of the humor of it, the layout, the artwork, all that stuff. I really do enjoy it, but I haven't played it. But Forbidden Psalm I have played, and that I do quite enjoy. It's only so tangentially like compatible with Morkborg. There's very little that it does. Like, there's a little, like, you can technically take a Morkborg character and bring it into I guess Forbidden Psalm slash The Last War slash Kill Sample Process slash 28 Psalms, which is the relatively recent kind of simplified version to some degree. But I like the stuff that they do. It's just funny that it's like compatible with Morkborg, and you're like, sort of, yeah, I guess. Nonetheless, good system, which I enjoy. Solo play for Alpha Strike sounds like my jam, indeed. Hope you wind up enjoying Infinity. If I could only play one game, it would be Infinity. Nice. The only of the 5 games I've played is the Five Guys one. It was enough though. Good enough hamburger. I don't think that's the same thing. I'm pretty sure it's not. Shareholders must be fed no matter what. Line must go up. Indeed. Battletech Aces when? Really looking forward to it. They've demoed it at several cons. I don't know. I think one of the guys said something about later part of the year. I don't know in time for Christmas. I don't know exactly, but later part of the year. They did not have it for, well, he showed me some of the cards, so they had some of that stuff there. Like, it might be just done. It might be done, but they have to, like, I don't know, maybe it's tariffs. Who can tell anymore? For what's worth, the UK equivalent of Fortune 500 is the FTSE 500, pronounced FTSE. That's funny. I think GW's problem is that when they have too many factions to actively playtest with the playtest group that they use. I could see that. They need to expand it and also give them more time between releases. I feel like not AI, but machine learning is a thing that they should think about investing in, to be able to look for big pain points quickly. Like, again, not with generative AI, but with like machine learning, where they could be like, look, we've worked with this company that's developed this system where we can punch in a bunch of different army lists for a bunch of different factions, and then have the machine learning algorithm, whatever, come back and go, here's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem. It could just play so many more games than they as a group can play. You know, I swear during one of the events I was at, during the launch of, I think it was during the launch of Spearhead, one of the guys from GW is like, oh, we've played 1,200 games of Spearhead at this point. Like, that's how much play testing they've done. And I'm like, okay. But I don't know. I wonder if just playing 1,200 games versus playing 1,200 games with actual play testers, like people who are paying attention to that stuff, I don't know if that's the same thing. I honestly don't. Like when Vince and I do it, like, you know, it's not a fun game when you do it. You're like really paying attention to like a lot of numbers and you're writing a lot of notes and stuff. You're not just like having fun with your mates or whatever, you know. Because they were saying that they were playing a lot of Spearhead during lunch. Like that was what they were doing because it's so quick and fast. You can just, you know, play it during a lunch period or whatever. And so there was a lot of that was going on every day at GW. And I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, but I guess like the question is like, how vigilant were they about when they were playing versus just having a good time and eating a sandwich? You know what I mean? I don't know. That's a good question. GW getting too big is why I'm going deep into Conflict 47. Warlord Games is all the old heads that were at GW. Yeah, that's Warlord came from, basically was started by ex-GW folks. Lore for Conflict is amazing. I haven't seen the new lore directly. I know that they're changing the way it kind of worked in comparison to like last edition or whatever, but yeah, we'll have to, I'm looking forward to it. I'm a GW fan and former employee of 11 plus years, but I believe they took a major turn for the worse on some levels when they went public. It totally shifted the focus from game to cash. I mean, that's the way that it seems like with all game companies. As soon as it becomes, nearly all game companies, as soon as it becomes about, oh, we went public and we have shareholders, that completely changes the way your company has to work. It's just the nature of the beast. I think one of the worst things you can do is, as a game company, is get shareholders. Like, I think that it's not bad for like a company that say like made I don't know, gaming mats. If they got so big that they had shareholders, you would then at that point it would just become about making more mats, right? You know what I mean? And making potentially better mats that sell better. But it wouldn't be like, oh, this mat, you can't use that mat anymore. There's a new second edition of that mat and all that kind of stuff. That's the problem, I think. You know, like a paint company. You got a paint company that is owned by shareholders. They're going to want the paint company to make new paints and to make new stuff and new products. And you know, you as the buyer will be like, oh, well, either I don't care about that new paint or new product, or you'd be like, sweet, new paints and new products. And that's fine. But it won't be like, oh, those old paints, you can't use those anymore. Like you might make a paint that replaces that paint, but you could still use the old paint. You know what I mean? Like so that's, I don't know, at least easier than you can with, yeah, it's a whole thing. So yeah, in my mind, the idea of game companies specifically that are making the rules that's what you play, when they get so big that they've got shareholders and stuff, then it becomes a little problematic. But I think suppliers of like accessories, paint companies, like again mats, even terrain companies and stuff like that, if there was a terrain company that got so big that they had shareholders, I don't know that it would have the same negative effect that it can on a game company to some degree. As a friend said, no historical miniatures rule set is going to tell you can't use your units or tanks because one of their designers decided to stop it for reasons. True. Morning from Arizona. How you doing? We're no longer supporting the rules for Sherman tanks. Like, yeah, that's not a thing. My fear with metal models is never breaking my own models. It's the Indiana Jones boulder of doom tearing through my opponent's models. Oh, yeah, I could see that problem too. Sure. Probably working with Dungeons and Lasers in Poland. Could be. Well, I think Dungeons and Lasers and Archon Studios are the same company. I think. Hello from Pittsburgh. How you doing? Had my first hobby injury in a very long time from fixing Ceocast mold lines. The knife slipped through the model and itself and sliced my finger. I've poked myself with a lot of hobby knives, but I haven't cut parts off that I remember. And I hope by knocking on wood that I will not. Archon equals Dungeons and Lasers. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's the same company, basically. Or whatever. It's like a different subsidiary, maybe? Maybe not. I'm not sure. Metal molds, known as tools, can literally weigh tons. Huge blocks of solid steel. Sure. Yeah, yeah. Having played Infinity for almost 3 years, go to local Infinity scene if you can to learn. I don't know that we have that around here. I mean, there are some players, but not. I don't see them played in stores for sure. Due to its complexity, it's a really a case of learning the fundamentals and what rules apply to you. I guess the question I always have to ask is why so like complex? I just don't know. I think if anything, that's going to be the issue that I'm going to have maybe with Infinity is that it's just like complexity for complexity's sake. And I just don't know. I mean, obviously there are people that like it because the game does pretty well, but I just don't think sometimes so much complexity is necessary in a miniatures game. But to each their own, I suppose. Die-cast metal molds can start at $10,000 and go from there. Oh yeah, they're wicked expensive. Yeah. I've been listening to you for the last 7 years. Wow. Well, I appreciate that. Being able to pick up a Snarling Badger Studios collection slipcase hardcover at some point would be cool. Probably not profitable, but cool. I don't know. Snarling Badger Omnibus. See, the thing about Omnibuses is then next year it would no longer be the Omnibus because we'd come up with another game. And then you'd be like, well, no, that one's not in this one. And you'd be like, well, yeah. Rain in Hell Ultimate Edition. Rain Harder. Ooh. Let's see here. There we go. I love wire-o bound books. Laying a book flat is so nice. It is very nice. I agree. That's one of the things I really, besides that and the size, that's the thing I really like about the Blackout rule book. You know, it's like what 4x6 or something like that, but it's also it just lays flat really easily, and so you've got a nice. You know, this is the section for the scenarios, if you were wondering. But yeah, I just really I like this book. I like this game a lot. It's just awesome. I like Blackout quite a bit. Metal is the worst. I'm anti-heft. Gotcha. I think I'm feeling a back-to-bed nap this morning. Have a great rest of the weekend and a great week after. Absolutely. You too, Molly. Someone gifted me a 3D printed Hellboy model and the resin melted in the sun. That'll happen sometimes. Yeah, yeah. Buying RPG I know I never play just to read is what PDFs are great for. Absolutely, absolutely. Crowdfunding some compilations of your game and Snarl Zine would be amazing someday if you want to. Maybe partnership with someone, I'd buy that. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. They keep the big booths for the ends of the aisles at UKGE. I like that layout. Yeah, that would be smart too, but I still think then, see, the thing is that it's the companies will pay, like Asmodee will be like, no, we want a giant booth. And we want it right in the middle. And you're like, okay, I guess it's going to cost this much. And they're like, okay. And that, you know, because that's Asmodee. For licensed games, Modifius has a bunch of products: Fallout, Star Trek, Skyrim, but they're not really as popular as you would expect. Oh yeah, no, they've got a lot of different. That's mainly what they do over there at Modifius. Maybe it's silly, but I feel like a real modeler while prepping metal models. Interesting. I agreed with your video that we're in a golden age due to 3D printing and digital PDFs. I don't agree with all of it because there are old and new minis from both great and dire, which is subjective. Well, sure. If a 3D print melted in the sun, I would think it was FDM printed. I guess it depends on how much you mean melt. Like did it just collapse a little bit because it got like soft? Because I could see that happening. Although usually, yeah, you're right. If it's in the sun, usually that would harden the UV because it's UV resin. But I suppose if it got really hot or something, then I could maybe, yeah, I don't know. Just popped in to say that shirt is nice. Well, thank you. Have you thought about looking at indie games like the Remnant Chronicles? I've not even heard of the Remnant Chronicles. Seems kind of complex for you, Uncle. I mean, it may be. It may be. Finally caught a live show while painting Epic Battles Revolution, British Line Infantry and Cavalry. Nice. Let's see here. Vancouver is just across the Columbia River from Portland. Oh, see, there you go. That's why they're close. All Infinity rules are free. Only physical book this edition is a lore book. Oh, no kidding. So they didn't even make like a regular rule book. They just made a lore book? Interesting. Unrelated, but you were instrumental in me getting into this hobby, and it has really had a massive impact on my quality of life. So I appreciate you doing your thing, even if you don't like Kill Team 3. Well, you know, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that that you know, wargaming has increased your quality of life, and I'm glad that maybe I had a hand in helping to do with that. Still, just don't really like the newest edition of Warcry, or sorry, not Warcry, Kill Team. Still wondering if we're going to see a new edition of Warcry, frankly. The most recent Kill Team box, Typhon? It's not Typhus. I think it's Typhon or Typhon. Again, it was one of those boxes where I'm like, I like one of those sets. I don't like the other set. Like the Tyranids were like, it's fine, whatever. They're not bad, but I'm like, I just don't. I don't play Tyranids, or I can't really find a great use for them in things. I guess maybe just using them as random aliens and stuff. They might be cool for that, but the servitors, I like the servitors. I thought those guys were cool. So, whereas in Blood and Zeal, I like both sides. So that was kind of random. 40K and GW have burned me out from wargaming. Then I started playing MCP, and I'm loving it. Marvel Crisis Protocol. So much better rules, and the company doesn't treat customers like trash. Well, that's good to hear. Marvel Crisis Protocol has a couple of problems for me personally, but they're not bad. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. It's just not to my liking. The bigger scale means I got to get new terrain, which I'm not super interested in. So that's problem number one. Problem number two for me personally is that I've watched some demos of the game, like in person, like at Gen Con and at Adepticon, and it seems like it's not about trying to kill the other guys. It seems like it's more about just like, it doesn't seem like a war game. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to kill Iron Man, I mean, or whatever, or Spider-Man or whatever, you know what I mean? So I feel like they're kind of, it's more about objective control and keeping people pushed away and stuff like that. It almost becomes a little bit more like a sport, at least the couple of times that I watched. So yeah, and I guess I'm just not into superhero comic books as much as I am into like sci-fi stuff and things like that. So it never quite hit with me, but I know it's popular, and I'm glad that it's out there. But it's just, like I said, not exactly for me. There's also a lot of tokens to keep track of and stuff like that, and that seems to get even worse in Shatterpoint. So yeah, but Legion, I'm excuse me. It's always two. A student and a master. But yeah, I don't know. It just never quite hit with me. But I know people play it around here, the Marvel one to some degree. I don't really see Shatterpoint played around here at all. I haven't seen Shatterpoint played around here. As most other addictive habits, everything comes in little baggies. Nice. Just got pulled into Conflict 47. New models are fantastic. I've only seen like thumbnail type pictures. I need to actually sit down on their website and take a look at some stuff. Just ducking my head in to say hi from sweltering Toronto, going to the beach for the first time this year. Nice. Is his shoulder joint at least sculpted with a nipple/socket for something at the joint? Not that first guy, no. I mean, well, no, there was no like lug or nipple or anything like that, but on the body itself, there was like a bit of a rim around the edge. Just it was pretty shallow, so maybe it'll seat better that way. The other ones had more of a lug that goes into a thing, so that's probably better. But some of the new tag kits are plastic. I could see you enjoying the Max for other games. Are they plastic or are they CO-cast? That's the good question. I don't pin my Infinity. I've built and played with all the pano that you have there. Okay. I think Combat Zone used keyed limbs as well. Worked okay for the most part. Yeah. I mean, Combat Zone, some of their models have other problems, but like because those are CO cast, every once in a while you're just a little bit more likely to have a bit of mold slippage. So you might have a thing that's like, like a little bit of that, which becomes difficult to fix sometimes. But yeah, but for the most part, the models are okay. Is this the Essentials box from last year or a new one? I think it's the newest one. I'm 98% sure. It's been out of stock for a while, and now, yeah, it's the new one, I think. I've always wanted to get my group into Infinity, but don't have enough nearby to teach, so I'll have to learn and teach them. Yeah, so like this box, and I talked about it in the video on Friday. This is the Essentials Start Here box, and it's like $40, and it comes with 6 models, 3 per side. It comes with 6 dice. Evidently, there's a ruler in there. There's cardstock or chipboard like terrain, printed terrain. There's a cardstock mat. There's cards. There's also the fancy book about how to get started and all that stuff. And it just seems like it's a really good deal, you know. It's odd that people have no problem not painting heavy metal style and then balk at painting metal or battle ready infinity. I think it's because they paint their models and show them at such a high degree so frequently. I really honestly believe that GW has been nerfing, for lack of a better word, nerfing their box art lately. Because there's times when I'm like, that's not, I could probably even do that, maybe. You know what I mean? And that is, and I do wonder if they do that to make it so that people are like, well, that's doable, maybe down the road. I don't know. Whereas if you make it like super crazy high end, people are like, there's no way I can ever do that. And then you're less likely to be interested in trying. You know what I mean? I don't know. I could be wrong. Could be psychological science, though. Ash Barker City dry brushes, contrast paints as Infinity, doesn't need to be box art, wet blending. Oh, yeah. I am not going to try to make it look like the stuff on the website either. But yeah. Also, a well-supported Army Builder app. Yeah, that's true. They've had an amazing Army Builder app for years. That's a heck of a deal for $40. Is there a Warcrow equivalent? No, from what I've seen. They don't have anything near that price, I think, for starter. I don't think. I thought all the boxes with Essentials on it have cards in them. They could be. I was told multiple times that the other box that I also got, which doesn't say Essentials on it. It's a military orders action pack. I was like, well, maybe this has got cards in it as well. And a bunch of people in the comments are like, no, it doesn't. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, there you go then. How are short sleeves not anyone's style? I wear t-shirts a lot. I'm not going to lie. Button down is not a thing that I do too frequently. I really wish Corvus Belli would get their plastic to be closer to GW hard plastic. I mean, everybody wants that, but nobody wants to pay for it. Painting up some Banished. Nice. How you doing, Colin? Does plastic glue work on COCast models? I don't know. I so infrequently use plastic cement. I almost never do. I don't know why. Vince makes fun of me, but I just don't have a use for it. Even when I'm using, okay, I take that back. I use plastic cement if I'm building terrain that is made out of plastic. So like GW's terrain kits, I'll use plastic cement then. But on the normal models, no, I never do. And people are like, well, you're stupid. Your face is stupid. Why are you doing that? And it's because every once in a while I'm like, that arm's not supposed to be like that or something like that. And it's much easier to just kind of like work it back and forth and pop it off with CA glue than it is to be like, well, I guess I have to try to cut it off now because you used plastic cement. Plastic cement is welding the two parts together by basically kind of melting them. So they're less likely to fall apart. Super glue will come apart sometimes, depending on how you do. And there's also even a little fluid you can put on there, like a little bit of acetone, not acetone, something like that, though, that can actually soften it up. It's like an unbinding agent you can usually get in a bottle. Debonder, I think they call it. So you can do that if you want to. And sometimes I do want to. So, yeah. Listening while I something the grass, probably cut the grass. I've had to a guess. Love the Gen Con haul video. Well, thank you. COCast needs super glue. That's kind of what I thought. I don't think that plastic cement works on it. Soon to be up near Kenosha next month. Work trip. Nice. Kenosha is pretty far away from where I am. Probably a little over 2.5 hours, maybe. Right around there. Yeah, I'm considerably up north in comparison to Kenosha. Kenosha is like just over the line. If I remember correctly, it's like right near Illinois. Mow the lawn. That's why I assumed. Bear in mind that the models in this kit are rather old, and newer kits are designed to fit better. I've heard that too. I had some people mention that in the comments. Uncle Adam just slipped that bouncer a 20, and you and your whole party are in. I don't want to, because I'm like, not a fan of Seocast at all. Like I said, I've built a half dozen models with it, and I haven't had any particularly bad luck. But I know that Sam does not like trying to scrape mold lines off of it. Just started playing Notorious, which is a really easy solo RPG, basically a Star Wars bounty hunter hunting targets on a planet based on Ronin. Oh, neat. I read and absorb lore of most RPG games and war games when I get to play them. That's why I'm tempted by the now defunct 2000 AD core books. Sure, makes sense. They used the ACES system for an actual play called the Magnificent Seven earlier. It was very interesting. Oh, that's kind of cool. CGL live stream. CGL. Oh, the Catalyst Games Labs. Yes. Live stream said they're targeting Black Friday timeframe. Oh, for ACES? That would be cool. That would be very cool. There you go. See also comics, Warner Brothers, Disney. Yeah. You'll probably live longer not using plastic cement. Well, I mean, I don't know that CA glue is necessarily super great either, but what is your recommendation for people who are new to competitive wargaming? Subscribe to Vince Venturella on YouTube. Vince Venturella and Sam Lenz. Sam Lenz artwork. I would definitely subscribe to both of them. For sure. A lot of people also saying Vince Venturella. Absolutely. Cool. Well, folks, it's 11 o'clock here in my neck of the woods. I want to thank everybody for coming by today and hanging out. I'm glad we got to talk a little bit about Infinity. Again, I'm still wondering about the rules and how that's going to go, but I will download them. I mean, I'm going to start by working with the little booklet that comes in the box, because that's why they put it in there, I'm assuming. And I'm going to be interested in building and painting the models. I'll probably be doing that separately from, like, the stuff I'm doing on Twitch right now is mostly the OPR stuff that I've been doing. I'll be very soon getting into the Space Lizards, but I got to finish up that last squad of 10 Robot Legion warriors. And then I'm going to make a video about, hey, I finished an army and now I'm going to do it again. But while that's going on, I'll probably work on these guys separately, because they should go pretty quickly, because again, there's just, the 6 of them. And I'm not going to get real fancy. So, yeah, that's pretty much about it. I want to thank everybody for coming by and hanging out today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. If you get the chance, do some hobby, if you do. And if you don't get the chance or whatever, then, don't beat yourself up about it. It's okay. That's pretty much about it. I'll be streaming on Twitch tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Time, and you can come by and check that out. I'll be working on, like I said, that last squad of the warriors for Robot Legion, for OPR, for Grimdark Future. So if you're interested, stop by twitch.tv/tabletop minions. It's really easy to find. Otherwise, I'll see you folks again soon. Be a new video coming up on Friday, like always. And that's pretty much it. Thanks to everybody who came by and hung out and chatted. Have yourselves a good day. And thanks for watching.